Rugby with Huw Griffin.
Welcome to the Huw Griffin on Rugby Podcast. Our favorite European rugby correspondent, Huw Griffin, complete with Andy Cap. And not a pleasure to speak to you again. Welcome back, Huw.
Hello, good afternoon, Enver. Pleasure to be back, as always.
That cap of yours, we were joking because there was a cartoon many moons ago, Andy Cap. I don't know if you remember that, if you ever seen that one. The guy was famous for wearing that exact cape that you're wearing there. That's why we're referring to Andy Cap.
I may have heard of it at some point, but
I'll make a point of sending you a picture of it right now. His wife was called Flo. His long-suffering wife was called Flo because he was unemployed, sleeping on the couch, and she had to do all the work and all the money. It's quite funny, actually. Anyway, typically, let's start with your shirt. What are you wearing this week?
This week, I am mostly wearing a France replica top. So this is 2016 alternate jersey. So kind of the changed, like the away top. So it's made by Adidas.
Which team? Sorry.
France.
Okay.
So it's got the France logo here. So this top is everything that I like about rugby jerseys. So it's made by Adidas, tick. It's got everything stitched on. Now, there's no front of shirt sponsor on it. I'm not sure why. Everything's like I said, stitched. The logo is on a plinth, which I like. I would always have the logo being on a plinth like this. It's got the shoulder stripes from Adidas, but it's this way rather than that way.
Oh, yeah.
Which is unusual. I don't have any others like this. And I just love it. I got this secondhand off an app called Vinted. And can you see that the seam along the side here kind of goes in like this? It makes you look really like you've got really broad shoulders and a really big chest, but a narrow waist, which in my case, I've got a narrow waist, but not a big chest or broad shoulders. But it's very, the thing that Adidas and Nike do that other suppliers don't is that they make shirts and things that look good on normal people. Like you don't have to be an elite level athlete to look good wearing the stuff. You could just be a normal person and it looks good on you. I love the design of the collar. Something very French about this, just screams French to me. And yeah, you know that I love French rugby. You know that I love Adidas rugby jerseys. So I love everything about this.
Yeah. If I had to look at it, without the logo on it, I would have guessed maybe looks like a USA shirt or something, the red and blue and the white and things.
It does look a bit like a USA shirt. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. It does look a bit like that.
No, I like it. And also, what is a plinth? You mean it's like stitched on? It's not like just printed on.
So
like
instead of it just being like the logo is kind of like mounted on a piece of material and then stitched on. Just makes it stand out a little bit more.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I'm not an Adidas fan simply because I don't sponsor the Springboks. I quite like Nike. We had a long discussion about that. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to this week's discussion. The first one is last weekend's test against Italy. The Springboks, how can I put this? They failed to impress. They failed to deliver. The bomb squad fizzled out a little bit. What was your impressions of that game, the Springbok performance specifically?
Yeah, the bomb was a dud. The fuse got cut. I was unimpressed. And, we can say this about a team that is number one in the world, that is going to go on to win lots of games this season. That particular performance on that particular day in history, I wasn't very impressed by the Springboks. I thought that they were I got the vibe they weren't really up for it. I didn't think that their game planning contained very much detail at all. I thought they were phoning it in, to be honest. And look, they always had the game in the bag. They were always going to win it, and it was a comfortable victory. It was a palindromic scoreline, most importantly. And I just thought that they just didn't apply themselves in the best way. And I thought that there's a few of the old boys in the squad are now starting to look like old boys rather than the cutting edge.
Well, the thing that jumped out there for me was, what on earth is a palindromic scoreline? I'm a Pretoria guy. I speak English as my second language. You must explain that to me.
A palindrome is something that's the same forwards as it is backwards. So 42-24 is a palindromic scoreline. It's the same backwards as it is forwards.
I feel quite stupid for asking you that, because now it makes certain sense to me.
No, it's your second language. As I said it, I thought, I wonder if he'll know this word, because I tell you what, there's a lot of English people who wouldn't know what that word means as well.
English is my second language, as I said. People, please forgive me. You can hear it in my Bill Beaumont Pretoria accent. I don't know if you saw Ari and my little.
I did.
That we did.
I watched that in work, and people must have been looking at me funny when you said, "Was the submarine really necessary?" And I fell about laughing at that bit, so I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was quite fun. Anyway, let's give credit where credit is due. Italy, though, they just pitch up at Loftus to be a punch bag. They came to give us a proper game, and they did. I mean, they fought the three. I mean, a maul try from almost basically the 22. I mean, that doesn't happen against the Springbok side all that often. Give Italy credit where it's due. They, like I said, they planned this properly.
Well, I don't know. They were completely out of the game by halftime. What was it, 28-3 at halftime? So they rallied a bit in the second half. I thought that they showed better physicality than I was expecting. And you have to remember that they're missing their best half a dozen players. It's not quite a B team, but it's not an A. This isn't in Italy's strongest lineup. I thought particularly their scrum half, Garbisi, who came off the bench. So Paolo Garbisi is their number one fly half. He wasn't playing, but his brother is a scrum half. He came off the bench, and I thought he added real zip to the game, added some real dynamism. I thought they had some nice shape, some nice detail to their attack. And they could have been better off if Simon Gazy had the ball in the right hand where he dived over in the corner and Curtly Aaronson had tackled him into touch. That was a very poor finish. So it could have been better for Italy.
I don't think it was such a poor finish. I think it was a very good finish by Curtly Arendse, because I saw him heading across the field there, because he was the wrong side of the field, and actually, caught up with the guy and then was able to tackle him out, to his seat outside the line. That was quite impressive, I would think.
I think Curtly Arendse is the most underrated Springbok, because there's another guy in the team who also is a small winger who wears a scrum cap,
yeah.
and happens to be Cheslin Colby, who is in the argument for the greatest player in the world at the moment. Whereas Curtly Arendse, here he is dropping 9.5 out of 10 performances every single week. And maybe, maybe this is controversial, maybe 2 out of 3 games, Arendse is the better player. It's just that in that one game, Cheslin Colby is absolutely unbelievable, doing stuff that no one else in the world can do. So the very, very, very good performances from Curtly Arendse are kind of still in the shadow of the unbelievable performances that Cheslin Colby is capable of.
What were your impressions of Harley Davidson as a referee? And I'm not ref bashing here at all. I'm quite impressed with Morne van der Berg being able to kick the ref by accident. That was quite a funny thing to happen. Your impressions of her performance in general? I am actually quite a fan of hers.
I'm a fan of Harley Davidson as well. Obviously, she's a trailblazer. You have to remember that she's done a World Cup final. She's done the Women's World Cup last time out, so she's not fazed by big games. I think in terms of URC referees, I can't really think of any better than her. Whether that's Scottish, Irish, Welsh, or the South African guys, I think she's the leading ref in the URC. I think that she, along with many URC referees, are over-reliant on the TMO. And I think that comes down to how she's coached and how all of the URC referees are coached. I think she unnecessarily went to the TMO to check some tries where she didn't need to. I think someone like Luke Pearce or Ben O'Keefe or Nick Berry or Angus Gardner would award the try and then trust the TMO to come in and tell them if there was something clear and obvious that they needed to go and review, which is what the TMO is for. I think a little bit too often there was a try and she went to the TMO and said just to check it, almost kind of not trusting herself. And I hope that will come with time, where she gets more of these opportunities. Obviously, this is the second or third time that she's refereed South Africa. So I hope that's just a learning experience for her. And like I said, I think that comes down to the coaching that she gets from her managers and from the people who are managing her. And like I said, I think that's not just a Harley Davidson thing. I think that's a thing that's URC referees on the whole struggle with. So that's something that I'd like to see tweak. Obviously, the TMO interventions were a big talking point last weekend. Obviously, all of us were sat on the sofa all day long last Saturday watching rugby, and watching all those games in a row, it felt like the TMO was getting too much airtime. And for me, it wasn't necessarily people post, the number of times the TMO was called. And for me, that's not the question. If the TMO needs to come in, the TMO needs to come in. It's how long it takes. It's how many times they have to watch the same replay in super duper slow-mo. It's normally on the second or third replay, you can say, it's clear and obvious what has happened here, what the outcome should be. But they just watch it again and again and again. And I would say in the case of Holly, I don't think that she's often paired with a particularly strong TMO. Normally, the TMO that she's paired with is also at a trainee level. So I would like to see her given a stronger TMO in her future games. And I just think that, I get the whole thing of it's better to watch it 10 times and get it right than watch it 3 times and get it wrong. But at the end of the day, come on, guys. What's it like for the people in the stadium? Do you just sat there just waiting? You just sat there going like,
Yeah,
come on, man, where's the decision? I think if you watch like rugby league, for example, rugby league, the TMO goes, right, okay, roll it on, and then he's got it in his hand and he's grounded it in the field of play, right, try time. Whereas rugby union, it's just, come on, guys, come on. We're not here to watch TMO. We're here to watch a game of rugby.
Yeah, with you. Just in terms of what she did and didn't do you think she rewarded the Springboks enough for the scrum dominance? Number one, and secondly, Italy was a little prone to falling on the rucks, and then it did a bit of that Irish thing. Harry says, where they do a bit of a clock watch, a clock arm, hand of, clock hand or whatever you call it, fall on the one side and then sort of, do 180 or something like that. So, little things like that she missed, or am I imagining that?
I don't know if missed is the right word. I think let go is the correct word. And I think firstly taking from the scrum point of view, that's a global thing. It's not even just URC anymore. This is every league. Like there was in the Lions game against the Brumbies was a French referee from the top 14, and he was letting stuff go at scrum time. It's very much like if the ball ends up at the number 8's feet, play on. And that's a diktat that's come down from World Rugby, from the guys who manage these referees saying, just get the game going. And in terms of ruck infringements and things, I sympathize with Holly because there were so many mistakes in that game. There were so many dropped balls and flubbed passes and errors made by players, handling errors, that she wanted to get a bit of flow into the game. And she probably felt under pressure like, this game isn't great. Let's be honest, guys. It wasn't a great game of rugby. It was quite dull to watch. So she was probably trying to get some momentum and get some continuity going into the game. And that meant she was letting things go. There are referees who were extreme on that front. Luke Pearce is an example of a referee who let everything go in the name of getting the game flowing. Maybe she'll reflect on that and say, well, okay, how much do I want to let go in future? If it's a bad game, that's not her fault necessarily. So there's that. So I would say that I sympathize with her in terms of trying to get some flow to the game in open play because the game was not a flowy game. In terms of the scrum, I would say every referee in the world is going to referee that the same at the moment because that's how they're told to referee it.
Is it the referee's responsibility to make a game flow better? If the game is sort of stop and start and stuttering along, is it the referee's responsibility to give it a bit of flow?
I think some people would argue that it is, and I would say that the referee has power to do that. So like Nigel Owens was the example of everyone said that if Nigel Owens referees the game, it's normally a good game. I think Wayne Barnes was very good at it as well, keeping the flow to the game. And because of the way that rugby is, where I could show you a freeze frame of any moment in a game of rugby, and we could point to a penalty, something that a referee could whistle, but any ruck especially. So referees are already in the position of having to let stuff go. If you ever watch on Rugby Pass the documentary Whistleblowers about referees at the Rugby World Cup in 2023, again, I'm saying his name again, Luke Pearce is someone who talks openly about that. If referees just penalised everything they saw, they would penalise something at every ruck. There would be no attacking rugby. It would be impossible. So, ergo, the referees do have a sense of responsibility. Now, you'll get different referees, like Andrew Brace, for example, is an example of a referee who blows his whistle a lot, is quite pedantic. That's my opinion. Other people might disagree. That's my opinion. Now, you can't say he's wrong because, like I said, the penalties are happening. So, but I think as fans, really, we want the referee to let stuff go and we want a flowing game. So whether it's the referee's responsibility or not, you can debate that. But what you can't debate is the referee has the power and the influence to make that happen or make that not happen. So it comes down to individuals at the end of the day.
And why do you think the bomb squad fizzled, didn't work?
I just think genuinely the Springboks weren't up for that game. I just think it wasn't a big deal for them. These are guys who have played in 2 World Cup finals. I think a Friends League match against Italy, a B-string Italy team at home in Pretoria. They probably looked at the 2 team sheets and gone, well, we're going to win this easily. And they did. And the game, by the time the bomb squad came on, the game was safe. And who really in that bomb squad is competing for their place? Really? Who in that bomb squad is there to make a statement? Now, you could say that at international level, at test level, you should always give 110% and stuff. But let's be brutally honest about it. Everyone in that 23's spot is safe for the time being in that Springbok squad. So I just think it's purely down to they weren't up for it. And you might say like, oh, but come on, these guys are professional players. They should be robotic. Listen to them when they're interviewed. Listen to players when they go on podcasts and stuff and they talk about being up for games. It's a thing, rightly or wrongly. It's a thing that players are more up for some games than they are for others. And I just don't think that the Springboks were particularly up for that particular game on that day in history.
Something I've learned, both coaches and players are just humans. They're just human. You know, they have the same emotions as we do, the same ups and downs, same expectations, the same disappointments. You can't think they're superheroes or super athletes or whatever. At the end of the day, they're still human. So I think that's a good point. You mentioned debate earlier, and a nice little debate you and Harry had going this week about who's the better side, South Africa or the All Blacks. Talk to me about your thought about that All Black game against the sort of C team French side there, and how they compared to the Springboks. Harry thought the Springboks would have beaten them quite easily. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, firstly, you know, when I watched your review with Harry and how you brought up my comments, and Harry said, "Sure, I'll take Huw on," which was very brave of him when I wasn't there to defend myself. I thought, I know, I was more disappointed with the Springboks than I was with the All Blacks, and particularly with a particular focus on the physicality and the ball carrying. Now, the Springboks had 48% of their possession was in Italy's 22 in the game. So to call it half of the time that the Springboks had the ball, it was in Italy's 22. And tries they score 5 or 6? Now you might say to me, yeah, but Huw, look at these tries. There's all the tries were scored by the Springboks crashing over the line, by winning a collision like Marco van Staden's try, for example, was just him smashing over somebody. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm holding the Springboks to the expectation of them being the best rugby team in the world, bar none. And I thought that their game plan lacked detail. Now, maybe it's a case of that squad that Rassie picked for that game. The game plan when he picks that team is to be the bash team, the kind of the team that everybody says that the Springboks are, but they aren't. You know what I mean? When people say, "Oh, we know how the Springboks are going to play," I feel like how they played against Italy is how people wrongly say that the Springboks play. But if you go back and watch that game, I invite anybody to do it. Go back and watch how many times a Springbok goes into contact upright, so carries the ball like this into contacts, and they get double tackled by 2 Italian players and they get stopped on the gain line. Like I said, yes, they got over the try line 6 times, but the amount of time and the amount of opportunity they had in Springboks in Italy's 22. And if you think about it on paper, how should the Springboks match up to Italy physically in a kind of alpha test? I thought that Italy at times were comfortable going in, like stopping the Springboks on the gain line. Like there was one carry, Eben Etzebeth went into contact backwards and just got stopped and hit. He got chopped low and hit high. Like I just thought it lacked venom. And if you look at the France All Blacks game, I thought that both of those teams had more venom, had more post-contact meters in their carries than the Springboks did in that game. I thought that the All Blacks, you know, I talked about Super Rugby last week. I would say that the one thing that Super Rugby has enhanced this season is, I think, the physicality and the kind of one-on-one ball carrying. And I thought that the All Blacks ball carrying had more to it, more oomph to it than the Springboks did. And I thought their attack had more detail. I'm repeating myself. I thought the Springboks were quite blunt. Now, the context is, the important point is that I thought that the Springboks just had an off day. And they still won the game easily, guys. So, you know, let's have some relativity to it. But I thought the Springboks had an off day. With the All Blacks, with the issues that the All Blacks had in the game against France, I thought that that was a continuation to the issues that we've seen the All Blacks have all of last season. Namely, it takes them way, way, way too long to score tries. They start from too far out. They carry, they play, and they overplay. If you look at the stats, in fact, I see, no, I haven't got it open anymore, but it's something like the All Blacks had the most rucks of any team. So I went through all of the test matches that were played on Saturday, which was felt like about 20. It was about 8 or 9. The All Blacks had the most carries, the most rucks, and the most passes of any team. And they scored 4 tries. If you look at what's per ruck, let's just take it per ruck. The number of tries that everybody else is scoring per ruck compared to the All Blacks, everyone else is taking 30-ish, maybe less. The All Blacks are taking 50 to score. Now they're scoring them, and again, you could say the context of the All Blacks had 3 tries disallowed against France. And I would say, cool, fine, except for the fact that that's a trend that we saw all of last year as well. And the thing about the All Blacks and France in that game is France, every single player in that French team is upgradable. There was someone currently in Ibiza on holiday at the end of the top 14 season who is better than the guy who played for the France on Saturday. All Blacks, who's better to come in? Who's the upgrade who can come in? And don't say Richie Mwanga. Available.
I was about to.
Who can come in and make that team better? Not many. Now, will the All Blacks get better next week? Yeah, probably. Yes, there's probably an element of rust there. But like I said, I'm holding it against them because this is something I noticed last season as well, even towards the end of last season. So I know Harry still backs the All Blacks as the second best team in the world. I don't think the All Blacks are the second best team in the world. I think France are clearly ahead of the All Blacks as we stand here today in 2025. I don't think that the All Blacks are at the level anymore. Again, we're holding them to standards. I'm not holding the All Blacks to the same standard as Scotland, for example. But I don't think that this is the same All Blacks anymore. And I just feel like there are underlying issues that Razor hasn't been able to solve with the All Blacks. Whereas I think that the Springboks on Saturday just had a tough day at the office.
I've got a very uneasy feeling about France, and that is that they're sort of becoming a juggernaut. And one day we could all wake up and it's going to be too late, and they're going to be this dominating force. I mean, they've got top 14, they've got the Pro de Deux, Club Rugby. They just have everything in place now, and suddenly it's starting to come together a little bit. I mean, this is the third string team, and they held the All Blacks to a 4-point victory. I mean, that says a lot here, and I'm worried about France in 2 years' time at the World Cup. I think you're right. That's probably going to be the Springboks' biggest threat. What do you think?
And if you look at how France scored their tries against the All Blacks, that France had the best conversion rate of 22 visits of any team in the world on Saturday. He had 5 22 visits, scored 3 tries. And again, I go back to how long it took them to score those tries. Not long. They let the All Blacks dominate possession, absolutely dominate possession. I think the All Blacks had something like 60% possession. But when France got the ball, they didn't have trouble getting into the All Blacks 22. And once they got into the 22, they more often than not scored. And like you said, Enver, that's not France's best players, not by a long shot. So that's worrying. It's very worrying for the All Blacks that teams are finding it that easy to score against them. But take Joris Sigons, for example, played 10 on Saturday. Who's ever heard of him? I have, obviously, because I watched the top 14. I'm wearing a France top. It was his first ever cap. I thought he looked comfortable. He wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. He wasn't trying to be, he wasn't like Sasha when Sasha plays, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to be the best player in the world right now. He had his job and he executed it. I think he's the best kicker from hand in France. The distance he can get, I've seen him kick 22 to 22 over and over and over again. I'm a Scarlets fan. We can't kick 10 meters. I'm watching it going, I didn't know a human being could do this. So that's the kind of depth. Again, Nolan Le Garrec. Oh my word, Theo Atasogbe. The back three he's trying to break into in France is Thomas Ramos, Louis Bielbiere, and Damien Penaud. There's a very interesting debate that maybe we can have another day about Cheslin Colby, Curtly Aronson, Louis Bielbiere, Damien Penaud. Who's the best wing partnership in the world?
I saw that.
And I think there's a conversation to be had there. Theo Atasogbe is phenomenal, and he's only 20 years old. He's only 20 years old, and the New Zealand press are saying, well, he was the best player on the pitch. He was better than any All Black. Like, oh my goodness. Like, so that's what we've got to compete with is the talents there. The question mark that I have over France, and that's the one that I said last week, is when push comes to shove, are they going to use that talent or are they going to play safe? And so far, like just to wrap it up, towards the end of that game, Galtier, the French coach, took off Joris Sigons and Nolan Legarec, who are both playing well, the halfbacks. And they brought on Anton Hastoy and the scrum half from Claremont, his name slips my mind. And I thought that was a downgrade. If Galtier was fully focused on winning that match, he would have left on Legarec and Jegons. But he's not. He's using this tour to build depth. And the rumours are in France that the team that he names to face the All Blacks this week will have 10 changes in it. 10 changes. They're using this tour to build depth. It's not all about the victory. I think what we need to watch is what they are doing from next season or 18 months out from the World Cup. Because if they start playing stronger and stronger teams on their summer tours and they start picking up the W's, if they beat the Springboks in Paris this autumn, then we've got a right to be worried.
Tell me, there's an argument going around that Springboks mustn't get too worried because we're rusty, we're just starting our season, and these guys are just coming off this season. That's strictly right. When did the Six Nations end? They've all been playing domestic rugby, URC or Premier or whatever, or top 40 for that matter. You can't say that Italy or France for that is on form because they're just coming off the end of the season. They're not. They've been several months since they played last. Yeah, maybe the Springboks played last November when the autumn series was going. But the point is, you can't really say that France have no better cohesion because they've been playing more often. They've been playing domestically for a while now. So that argument doesn't hold water for me.
No, absolutely not. And this is the contrast that you've got to make, is that the Six Nations ends in March. The Northern Hemisphere teams then play next in July. Whereas the Southern Hemisphere teams, your season starts now in July, and you're going to play constantly throughout until pretty much November. Yes, for South Africa, obviously, you guys have a bit of a break when the URC starts, and then you're back playing in November. But I think that's a big reason why the Northern Hemisphere teams coming down to the South don't often win. And then when the Southern teams go north, they often do win, because you guys are basically club teams by the time that you've come up there. You're playing your 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th game when you come up to play us, whereas we're playing basically our first, second, and third game when we come down to you. Yeah. So it's a massive disadvantage for us. Definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's exactly what I was thinking as well. Anyway, you talked about after the match, Rassie was unhappy chappy, let's call him that, at that press conference. And he kept true to his word, and he made wholesale changes, 11 changes to the starting lineup. Interesting, let's start with the front row. Thomas du Toit at Lucid, where he's played tight. I know he can play both sides of the scrum, but interesting that I picked him at Lucid.
Yeah, and also Jan-Hendrik Wessels at substitute hooker. I think this is the depth building that Rassie's doing. Again, I think that Rassie is best at the depth building in the world. It's everyone's been talking about how France had disrespected the All Blacks by playing a B team. Rassie's made 11 changes. Is anyone going to go call this team disrespectful? No Eben Etzebeth, no Archer Sneeman, But anyway, discussion for another day. I think, look, it's clear that the Boks have a scrum advantage over Italy. I don't think that should be news to anybody. And if you look at they're playing Wilco low at number 3. So I think it's fair that Thomas du Toit moves over. And if you ask Thomas du Toit, can you play loose head? And if he says yes, then he can't be angry when he gets played there. So there you go.
I'm not saying he's angry. I'm just saying that's interesting that they actually picked him to start at loose head, rather than come off the bench, sort of cover for both sides of it. That's interesting to me. And then, of course, the big talking point here is Salman Murat not just being captain, but actually in the team. There are a lot of people saying that he doesn't really deserve his place in the Springbok team.
Well, clearly Rassie rates Simmons. I'm glad that Ruan Norgir is in there. I really rate him, playing at number 5 instead of number 7, which is a relief. Also, Cobus Feaster on the bench as well. I think Rassie obviously has captained Salomon Murat before, so clearly rates him and clearly adds him in. Look, Peter Steph has been injured since the last Springbok game as well. Now, obviously, he's got a lot more credit in the bank than Salomon Murat, but players having not been playing or not been playing well for their club side and then coming in and playing for the Springboks or any test team really isn't new news. But I would say that probably Murat is under pressure to justify the faith that Rassie has shown in him, but I'm not sure I'm surprised by it.
Of course, that'll be another Springbok brother combination, Jasper Wiese and Cobus Wiese, if they end up on the field at the same time. That's going to be an interesting one. Both hard men. Harry said Cobus was one of the hardest men he's ever met in his life. One of the nicest guys, but still a hard man. And I know when Jake signed him, he said the guy is so big, his wingspan, he called it, was so large, so wide, you could stop any ball. You think you'll play him at 4 or at 7, maybe, as cover for 7?
Well, I think he'll probably play him in the second row because there's no other second row cover on the bench unless they move Peter Steph into the second row and then let Cobus go to 7.
Which they've done before.
Yeah, which they've done before. So I don't know is the answer.
Interesting enough, Andre Esterhuizen starts at centre this week, so you probably won't end up at 7. That's going to be an interesting one. So it's probably going to be a typical 5-3 bench, this one. Ethan Hooker might, end up playing lock or hooker or prop or something. We don't know. But
I'm looking forward to seeing Ethan Hooker. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing Canan Moodie as well. I'm much more looking forward to seeing this team than I was last week. I'm excited for this game.
Canan Moodie at 13? I personally feel that he's more of a wing, my honest opinion.
But if I remember watching that game when the Bulls beat Glasgow up in Scotstoun, and just Canan Moodie doing his best Jesse Kriegel impression, absolutely smashing people behind the game line. I think I can see that working. I'm excited for it. Like I said, I'm repeating myself. I think Canan Moodie can play 13 and will.
Willie le Roux plays his 100th test. Do you think it's his swan song as well at the same time?
I don't know, maybe. The way that Rassie's been talking about him has made it seem like it might be, but really seems clearly Rassie likes him and rates him not just as a player but as a character, and it could be one of those coaches on the pitch things. So I would say that Willie probably is going to be getting phased out now that he's got the 100, but I still expect him to be in maybe the Boks squad after this. But I do think that fullback spot is open for grabs. Yes, Fazzie's been playing very well, but I don't think it's nailed on who's definitely going to replace him.
Well, talk to me about that halfback combination, Grant Williams and Manie Libbok. Lots of people saying that Manie Libbok, Andre actually pointed out to me, Andre Pretorius, told me to look at his run up, and if he's changed it, simplified it, very quick, tap, go. Doesn't wait for the shot clock anymore. He's leaving the Stormers now. People are very upset about that, actually. What do you think of that combination as a halfback combination?
And there, I'll tell you one thing. If I was the Springbok head coach, this is the halfback combination that I would pick every single game.
That's interesting.
I think that Grant Williams is the best scrum half in South Africa. And obviously his pace is his point of difference. Remember the try he scored in Twickenham last year? Absolutely sensational. And Manie Libbok, I am a Manie Libbok super fan. He's in my top 3 fly halves in the world. He makes me feel alive. I want to watch this guy play every single week. I want to see the no look outside of the boots crossfield kicks. I want to see the 30-meter passes. I think he's the best passer of the ball in South Africa. I love watching this guy play. So that's a big reason why I'm excited about this game.
Okay. So what makes him better than Sasha, do you think, for you?
He's more exciting. Why do we watch sport? Why are we into this? I get for you guys as Springbok fans, you just want to see your team win. As me, I wish the Springboks well, but as a neutral, I want to see entertaining rugby, and he's the most entertaining. Manie Libbok is all about bringing the best out of the people around him. Sasha is all about doing the amazing thing himself, which is why it was such an impact when Damien Willemse got injured for the Stormers, is there was no one there to cover for Sasha when he went and did something exciting. Whereas Manie is all about the people around him and making them the stars. So That's one of the many reasons that I love Manie. So is Sasha probably a more talented player, all things considered, than Manie? Yeah, probably. But I prefer watching Manie.
You were making a couple of Cape Town supporters very, very happy to hear that, honestly. Right, what do you expect this weekend? I mean, there's 44 players in 3 games. Last year, it took 50 players, 10 games. It took us 10 games to pick 50 players. This year, 44 players in 3 games. Building depth, like you just said. What is the chances of this team not working properly because the players are not used to playing with each other? The combinations are not tested properly.
There'll probably be some ropey moments, but that backline's got everything you need. It's got pace, it's got power, it's got vision, it's got distribution, it's got a kicking game. I'm looking forward to seeing Manie and Willie spraying 30-meter passes at every opportunity, some of which might look a little bit forward, but we play on. Look, the pack is going to have enough. The scrum is going to be fine. The line out should be fine with Norkir, who I think is your best line out operator in there. It's got Jasper Visa. I think it will be fine, and I think there will be some amazing tries, and I think there'll be some ropey moments, but that should be allowed. So I expect the Springboks to spread the ball on the weekend.
And win by a bigger margin than last weekend.
The same margin.
All right, fair call. We'll see next week. I think this is, any team in the world would sort of go, oh, that's a strong team to play against, and it's sort of the second string almost. I don't want to say it's second string. It's not. It's an alternative, but still, it's a very, very strong.
I would say it's second string. I would have no problem calling it second string. I just think it's still also very, very, very good.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, I agree with you. Anyway, so we're looking forward to that one. But last weekend, the Springbok women took on Canada. I think Canada's the number 2 team in the world. Swys de Bruin, the coach there, Springbok women's coach. What did you think of that game? You wanted to talk about that specifically.
Yeah, so for people who, like, as you alluded to there, people who don't know, Canada really nowhere in the men's game. In the women's game, very like you said, second team in the world. They've played the last 2 games they've played against New Zealand. They've won 1, drawn 1. They won a game in New Zealand against New Zealand, which is phenomenal. And a lot of people are expecting Canada to get to the World Cup final this year in 2025. So it was a big challenge for the Springbok women. And this game was fascinating to me because you could see the difference in, shall we say, evolution of the teams, how Canada are much more advanced as a team, but you could see the potential of the Springbok women. Now, the fun thing about women's rugby is that the women's team, men's rugby is really homogenous. And they mean, like, if you take a scrum half from every team in the Six Nations, you can compare their stats and they're similar. You could take a second row, you could take an inside centre from any team, top 10 team in the world, and compare their stats and go, yeah, pretty similar. If you plotted them on a graph, they'd all be within a small group. Women's rugby, vast differences. There might be no commonality between 2 players of the same position on 2 different teams. It's a much more, when I say immature, I mean it's still in the early days of professionalism, women's rugby. So you still get these big differences in, if nothing else, quality of athlete between different teams in different positions. And the interesting thing about the Springbok women is that, like many women's teams, they are kind of like a more concentrated DNA version of what the rugby is in that country. So the Springbok women against Canada got comfortably beaten by a team that has much better core skills, much better structures, much better organization, because they're a much more mature team. But I tell you, man, the athleticism and the raw kind of athletic ability of the Springbok women is scary. And your scrum absolutely ripped Canada apart. They could not cope with the Springbok women's scrum. I sent you the clips. Someone clipped up every Springbok women's scrum against Canada, demolished them. I honestly think that Canada Lucette's going to have therapy after this match, because she was in a world of hurt. And then Springbok women got Leckerbacks. Scrum cap wearing, speedy, swivel hipped backs who are like so much faster. The thing about women's rugby is the top female athletes in the world aren't picking up a rugby ball as their first choice. They're going track and fields and they may be going soccer first, depending on what country they're from. Hockey, netball, it depends on the country, before they're going to rugby. But in South Africa, if your best athletes are more likely to go to rugby, like your backs are faster than most countries' backs. Your scrum is clearly more powerful, and your maul is more powerful. Your players are stronger, and they're able to apply that strength in a rugby way better. And I'm telling you, if your scrum and your maul is better than theirs, and your backs are faster than theirs, there's not a lot more that you need more than that to start picking up some serious wins. Some serious wins. We've seen with Ireland women 2.5 years ago, they were nowhere. They were the worst team in the Six Nations. They changed their coach. They got a bit more structure into their game. They're now the 5th best team in the world. They beat New Zealand last year. Italy women a year ago, hopeless, terrible, awful. This year, leaps and bounds. The amount of ground that there is to be made up in women's rugby, you can make up a lot of ground rapidly, and South African women are going to do that. So I think it's very plausible that within 2 years, maybe this World Cup is too soon for them, but by the next World Cup, South Africa could be targeting a semi-final. And if you consider how far back you're coming from, it's an exciting time for women's rugby in South Africa. You could get very good very fast.
Let's talk about Swys de Brain being the coach, a renowned rugby brain, a very good rugby coach. Let's call it what it is. What is your impressions of him? What's he doing differently? Where's he making the difference to make this team better? Can you see that happening? What's your impressions of him as the Springbok head coach now?
Obviously very experienced. Had lots of jobs in South Africa, has a proven track record, knows what an elite rugby environment is like. And look, rugby's rugby. A good rugby team's a good rugby team. Whether it's men or women, the same things are going to make either of those good. And you South Africans, you always make a plan, and he'll have a plan. It will be a challenge for him of spending all his life in the men's rugby environment, going into a women's environment, as it would be for anybody. Absolutely any coach who's always coached men going into coaching women. There will be things that are different that he has to adjust, he has to learn. So not only will there be a learning process for the players as they come up to a standard that he is used to, that there will be a learning process for him of adjusting himself as to how to get the best out of female athletes compared to getting the best out of male athletes. So that's the interesting thing. But when I've seen him do punditry work, he's clearly a thinker of the game, and he's clearly a critical thinker. So I think that will serve him well.
Yeah. Right. I want to talk about Wales quickly, losing against Japan, against all expectations. I'm sorry to bring this up now, but I mean, you and I agreed last week this will be the game where they break that streak. 18 games, can't lose 18 in a row. Japan, lost against the Maori New Zealanders and everything else, and now they beat Wales. I mean, come on, man, what's going on there?
What's going on? Look, the things that are going on in Wales at the moment is so toxic and horrible. I don't want to talk about it, so I'll just focus on this game. A lot of people are kind of going galaxy brain on the analysis for this game, and are kind of going and talking about what they did in possession and their 22 and how they played and the kicking strategy and things. Lads, forget all of that. I'll tell you what went wrong in this game. Wales in this game put in the worst line-out performance I have ever seen in my life. So their line-out caller, Ben Carter, got knocked out in 30 seconds into the game and got stretchered off the pitch. On came James Rassie from the bench. He's a hybrid 6 lock player. He's not an out-and-out lock. He's not an out-and-out 6. The line-out completely fell apart. It was a shambles. It was embarrassing. It wasn't professional standard. Wales had multiple opportunities. They kicked penalties into Japan's 22. They had a chance to either maul it or play. And Japan either stole their ball, held their maul up, which is embarrassing. It was an overthrow, or it was unclean ball. They didn't manage to do the play that they had planned, and so they had no option other than to kick. If that line out was functional, if that line out was competent, Wales win that game, because because the number of chances they had in Japan's 22, they would have converted at least one of them. But that line out in that game was incompetent, and that's why we lost that game.
Yeah. Apparently your youth structures are looking quite good, though. With some young players coming through.
Well, we struggled to beat Spain in the under-20s this morning, so
that's a flash in the pan as well.
Not that good. Scarlet's under-18s are very, very good, if that helps.
I don't know, does it? That's interesting. Right. Just lastly, on the British Irish Lions playing against the Brumbies this morning, what did you think of that game?
Speaking about the Brumbies first, I thought that they acquitted themselves very well, missing their best players because they're away with the Wallabies. The likes of Tom Wright, Bobby V, Rob Valentini, so in the front row. They were handicapped there, but I thought they gave a great account of themselves. They'll be very disappointed with how the first half ended. They had a goal line dropout with 5 seconds to go. They kicked the ball short, gave the ball back to the Lions, and the Lions scored a try. Their coaches would have been absolutely fuming about that. But I thought that they rattled the Lions. It finished 4-5. The Lions obviously won the game. But the Brumbies scored over 20 points. And people were saying, in the WhatsApp groups that I was in, if the Brumbies had had their best players, how close would this game have been? Bear in mind, this lineup that the Lions put out is what we expect the test team to be. It's the closest we've seen to the test team so far. And the thing about the Lions was they were so easily disrupted by the Brumbies. They were so easily knocked out of their stride. The physicality battle was too close, too comparable for what it should be. A very decent club side shot of its best players against the best players from England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. Not Wales.
Yeah, there's no Wales playing that team.
Yeah, I thought that the Lions they're just not the whole point of the Lions, and people seem to do the mental gymnastics to avoid this point. But the whole point of the Lions is to be the best team in the world. That's the whole idea. They're the best of the best. That's what it says all over their website. That they go and they play against the best teams theoretically. To get onto a Lions tour, you have to be the best player from your nation. Well, this Lions team at the moment doesn't look anywhere close to being the best team in the world. Doesn't look anywhere close. So that's a worrying sign. If the Lions don't win this test series against Australia, which they should, they're still favourites to win 3-0. But if they don't, even if they drop a test, if they drop the first test, serious questions got to be asked. Honestly, this Lions tour has been a bit of a dud so far. It's been extremely uninteresting to watch. They lost their only hard game against Argentina. And I haven't been particularly inspired by what they've done against any of the Super Rugby franchises yet either.
Just talk about Australia quickly. They've lost Noah Lolesio, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, with a neck injury and an operation. And now there's lots of talk about James O'Connor maybe, and who else? Who else can step into that number 10 shirt? Because he looks like he was going to be the favourite to play fly-off.
Yeah. So I always call him Lolesio, but when he was playing in France, they called him Lolesio. So I don't know. So I call him Lolesio. I think he is Australia's best 10. I expected that he would have started. Speaking to Brett McKay from the 8-9 combo, he said it's a big blow. It will be now probably Ben Donaldson from the Western Force, who I rate. I think he's a very tidy player, very composed, very organised, always makes good decisions. So I expect it to be him. If it was me, I would call up James O'Connor. Look, the story arc of this, after he played against the Lions in 2013, I would say you look at Rassie bringing back players he played against the Lions in 2009. I would say bring him back, safe pair of hands. There's been playing for the Crusaders, who were the Super Rugby champions, of course. So I'd say bring him in, but losing Lolesio is a big blow. Big blow.
Lolesio, there we go. Sorry, I messed that up completely. So sorry for all the Australian guys watching. Just lastly, you hopefully next week when when your face appears on camera, you'll be wearing a Blue Bull shirt. I hope so, because it's been ages now.
It's possible.
Next week is 3 weeks, so you should have it by then. Really. Anyway, man, thank you. That was a good one. Appreciate it.
Cheers, man.
Rugby with Huw Griffin.